They were exiled, abandoned, left to die in silence, until humanity found them. This is the story of how one human choice defied a galaxy and built a new dawn among the stars. The Forgotten Children of Nexara. The desert winds of Kepler 438c howled across the cracked surface of what had once been a thriving world. Captain Sarah Chen adjusted the atmospheric readings on her scanner and frowned at the data. The planet showed signs of ancient civilization, but the current environment was barely habitable. Massive cities lay buried beneath centuries of sand, their crystalline spires poking through the dunes like the bones of some forgotten giant. "Captain, we're picking up that signal again," called Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez from the communications station aboard the Earth vessel Wanderer. "It's definitely artificial, but the pattern is unlike anything in our databases." Sarah had been exploring the Outer Rim territories for 3 years now, mapping systems that the Galactic Coalition had deemed uninteresting. Earth was still the new kid in galactic politics, having joined the Coalition only 50 years ago. They were given the scraps, the forgotten corners of space that the older civilizations had already picked clean. But sometimes, Sarah thought, the most interesting discoveries came from the places others had overlooked. "Origin of the signal?" she asked, moving to Rodriguez's station. "Surface level, coordinates locked in. It's coming from what looks like a settlement built into one of those buried cities." Dr. James Park, the expedition's xenobiologist, looked up from his studies. "Captain, the atmospheric readings suggest this world has been dying for centuries. Whatever's down there has managed to survive in conditions that would challenge even our best life support systems." Sarah made her decision quickly. "Prep the landing shuttle. We're going down to investigate." The shuttle descended through the thin atmosphere, revealing more details of the mysterious world below. The settlement was small, maybe a few hundred, structures built into and around the ruins of something much grander. As they landed, Sarah could see movement in the buildings. Whatever lived here was still alive. The beings that emerged to meet them were unlike anything Sarah had ever seen. They stood roughly human height, but their skin had a translucent quality that seemed to shimmer with internal light. Their features were delicate, almost ethereal, with large eyes that held depths of sadness and wisdom. They moved with careful grace, as if every step was precious. "Welcome, travelers," said their apparent leader, speaking in accented but clear galactic standard. "I am Elder Kenth of the Nexaran people. It has been many cycles since anyone has visited our world." Sarah removed her helmet, trusting her atmospheric readings. The air was thin but breathable. "I'm Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth vessel Wanderer. We detected your signal and came to investigate." Kenth's expression showed surprise. "Earth? We do not know this world. Are you perhaps a new client species of the Coalition?" "We're members, but relatively new ones," Sarah replied. "We've been exploring uncharted regions. Your world isn't in any of our databases." The sadness in Kenth's eyes deepened. "That is because we have been forgotten by choice, not accident. Please, will you share our evening meal? There is much to explain, and we have not had visitors to share our stories with in 2 centuries. The Nexaran settlement was a marvel of adaptation. They had carved living spaces into the ancient ruins, using what appeared to be advanced biotechnology to create a sustainable environment. Gardens grew in carefully tended plots, producing food that glowed with the same gentle light as their caretakers. As they sat around a circular table, sharing a meal of unfamiliar but delicious foods, Kenth began to tell their story. "Long ago, the Nexarans were part of the great galactic community. We were healers using our natural abilities to cure diseases and mend injuries across hundreds of worlds. Our gift was simple but powerful. We could channel our life energy to accelerate healing in others." Dr. Park leaned forward with interest. "That's incredible. How does the process work?" Kenth held up his hand, and Sarah watched in amazement as it began to glow with soft, warm light. "We convert our own life force into healing energy. The process doesn't harm us if done carefully, but it requires great skill and training." "Why would anyone want to exile people with abilities like that?" Rodriguez asked. The elder's expression grew bitter. "Because healing was big business. The Coalition's medical corporations made enormous profits from treating diseases and injuries that we could cure in minutes. When word spread of our abilities, demand for our help grew beyond what we could provide. Sarah felt a chill of understanding. So they removed the competition. The Coalition accused us of spreading a plague, Kent continued. They claimed our healing energy was actually a bioweapon that would eventually kill those we treated. They provided false data, manipulated evidence, and created fear where there should have been gratitude. But surely other species knew the truth, Dr. Park protested. Some did. But the Coalition is powerful, and the medical corporations influential. Those who spoke in our favor were threatened with economic sanctions. Eventually, even our closest allies abandoned us. Kent gestured to the ruins around them. We were given this dying world as our reservation and told never to leave. Any ship that tried to make contact with us would be destroyed. Sarah looked around at the small settlement, thinking about the vast ruins that stretched across the planet. How many of you are left? Perhaps 3,000 souls, Kent said quietly. Once we numbered in the millions. Without access to proper resources, without the ability to trade or explore, we have slowly dwindled. The young ones especially struggle with the isolation. As if summoned by his words, a group of Nexaran children appeared at the edge of the dining area. They stared at the humans with wide, curious eyes, chattering excitedly in their own language. They have never seen off-worlders before, Kent explained with a sad smile. For them, you are the first proof that anything exists beyond our world. Sarah felt something stir in her chest, a familiar feeling that had driven her to become an explorer in the first place. The need to help, to make things right, to stand up for those who couldn't stand up for themselves. Elder Kent, would you be willing to demonstrate your healing abilities? Dr. Park has some medical equipment that could record the process. The elder nodded. Rodriguez volunteered to be the subject, allowing Dr. Park to create a small cut on his hand. What happened next left the humans speechless. Kent placed his glowing hands over the wound, and they watched as the cut began to close. Not just surface healing, but complete regeneration at the cellular level. The process took less than 30 seconds, leaving no scar, no sign that any injury had ever existed. Dr. Park's medical scanner showed readings that made him check the device twice. Captain, this isn't just healing. The lieutenant's entire hand shows improved cellular health. Blood flow is better, muscle tension is reduced, even old micro-injuries from his military service have been repaired. This is what they were afraid of, Sarah said quietly. Not a plague or a bioweapon. They were afraid of losing control. That evening, as the Nexaran suns set over the ancient ruins, Sarah made a decision that would change everything. She opened a secure communication channel to Earth Command. This is Captain Chen reporting from the Kepler 438 system. I've made contact with a previously unknown sentient species called the Nexarans. They've been deliberately isolated by the Coalition for the past 2 centuries. Admiral Thompson's image appeared on the screen, his weathered face serious. What kind of isolation, Captain? The kind that amounts to genocide, sir. These people have healing abilities that could revolutionize medicine across the galaxy. The Coalition exiled them because they threatened corporate profits. Thompson was quiet for a long moment. Captain, are you absolutely certain about these claims? Interfering with Coalition policy could have serious consequences for Earth. Sarah looked out at the settlement where Nexaran families were settling down for the night. Children who had never seen the stars their ancestors once traveled between. Elders who remembered freedom but had given up hope of ever experiencing it again. Sir, I've never been more certain of anything in my life. These people need our help. Then you'll have it, Thompson said firmly. I'm dispatching the rescue fleet immediately. Captain Chen, you've just committed humanity to a course we can't take back. I understand, sir, and I believe it's exactly what we should do. As the communication ended, Dr. Park approached with his final medical analysis. Captain, I've been studying the readings from today's demonstration. If the Nexarans could train others in their techniques, we could eliminate most diseases and injuries across human space within a generation. Sarah smiled, feeling the weight of the decision she'd made. Earth had been the newcomer in galactic politics for 50 years, always trying to prove themselves worthy of acceptance. Maybe it was time to stop asking for permission and start doing what was right. Dr. Park, send all your data to Earth Medical Command. Let them know we're going to need every medical professional and scientist we have. For what, Captain? To learn everything these people can teach us, and to prepare for the fight that's coming when the Coalition realizes what we're doing. Outside, the first stars were appearing in the darkening sky. For the first time in 2 centuries, the Nexarans had reason to hope that tomorrow might bring something better than endless exile. And somewhere in space, human ships were already changing course, racing toward a forgotten world where an entire species waited for salvation. The galaxy had cast them out, but humanity was about to take them in. When worlds collide, Admiral Marcus, Webb stared at the tactical display aboard the Coalition flagship Dominion, his jaw clenched with barely controlled rage. 3 weeks had passed since the human rescue fleet had arrived at the Nexaran world, and the political situation was spiraling out of control faster than anyone had anticipated. Status report, he demanded from his aide, Commander Yilix, a tall Altarian with the typical blue-scaled skin of his species. 17 human vessels now in orbit around Kepler 438c, sir. They've established a full evacuation operation. Our sources indicate they've already relocated approximately 800 Nexarans to human colonies. Webb's fist slammed into the armrest of his command chair. How did they even find them? That system was marked as quarantined in all official records. Unknown, sir. But the humans seem to have complete data on Nexaran capabilities. They're not operating blindly. The truth was more disturbing than Webb wanted to admit. The Coalition had worked for 2 centuries to keep the Nexaran, problem contained. The exile had been sold to member species as a necessary quarantine, a regrettable but essential measure to protect galactic civilization from a dangerous plague species. Only a handful of high-ranking officials knew the real reason for the isolation. "Sir," came a voice from the communications station. "Priority message from Coalition Central Command." The holographic image of Supreme Chancellor Vorthak materialized above the tactical display. The ancient Keltaran's tentacled face showed the kind of cold fury that had made him feared across the galaxy. "Admiral Webb, explain to me how a species we've kept isolated for 2 centuries is now being paraded across human news networks as miraculous healers." Webb straightened. "The humans stumbled onto them during routine exploration, Chancellor. We're moving to contain the situation." "Contain?" Vorthak's voice dripped with sarcasm. "Admiral, I'm looking at footage of Nexaran children healing human soldiers wounded in the Centauri conflicts. Complete regeneration of lost limbs, Admiral. On live galactic television." The implications hit Webb like a physical blow. If the general population learned what the Nexarans could actually do, if they discovered the real reason for the exile, the political consequences would be catastrophic. The Coalition's authority rested on the trust of member species. That trust would evaporate overnight if the truth came out. "What are your orders, Chancellor?" "Simple. The humans have 48 hours to return the Nexarans to their assigned world and cease all contact. If they refuse, we will enforce the quarantine by any means necessary." The transmission ended, leaving Webb staring at the tactical display. 48 hours to prevent a war that could tear the galaxy apart. Meanwhile, aboard the human rescue ship New Hope, Captain Sarah Chen was facing her own impossible situation. The evacuation was proceeding faster than anyone had hoped, but they were nowhere near finished. 3,000 Nexarans couldn't be moved overnight, especially when many were elderly or infirm from centuries of hardship. "Captain," called Dr. Park from the medical bay, "you need to see this." Sarah found the doctor working alongside a young Nexaran named Lyra, both of them focused on a human Marine who had been injured in a training accident on the planet's surface. The Marine's leg had been crushed by falling debris, injuries that would normally require months of surgery and rehabilitation. "Watch," Dr. Park said quietly. Lyra placed her glowing hands on the Marine's leg, her face serene with concentration. Over the course of 10 minutes, Sarah watched bone knit itself back together, muscle tissue regenerate, and skin heal without leaving so much as a scar. When Lyra finished, the Marine sat up and flexed his leg, as if nothing had ever happened. "My God," Sarah whispered. "It gets better," Dr. Park said, checking his medical scanner. "The healing process doesn't just repair damage, it optimizes. His leg is actually stronger now than it was before the injury." Lyra smiled tiredly. "The gift shows us how things should be, not just how to fix what is broken." "How many people could you train to do this?" Sarah asked. "Given time and willing students, hundreds, maybe thousands." Lyra's expression grew sad. "But we have had no one to teach for so long. The knowledge grows thin." Sarah was about to respond when alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice came over the comm system. "Captain, to the bridge immediately. We have Coalition ships dropping out of hyperspace." Sarah ran to the bridge, where the tactical display showed a sight that made her blood run cold. 12 Coalition warships in attack formation, led by a massive flagship that dwarfed even the largest human vessels. "Incoming transmission," Rodriguez reported. Admiral Webb's image appeared on the main screen, his expression grim but determined. "Captain Chen, I am Admiral Webb of the Coalition Defense Force. You are in violation of quarantine protocols and galactic law. You have 48 hours to return all Nexarans to the planet's surface and withdraw from this system." Sarah stepped forward. "Admiral, these people pose no threat to anyone. The quarantine is based on false information. Captain, I'm not here to debate policy. You have your orders. And if we refuse?" Webb's pause spoke volumes. "Then we will enforce compliance through military action." The transmission ended, leaving Sarah staring at the impossible odds displayed on her tactical screen. The human rescue fleet was composed mostly of transport ships and medical vessels. They had 3 light cruisers for protection, but against a Coalition battle group they might as well have been throwing rocks. "Captain," came a voice from behind her. Elder Kent had arrived on the bridge, his aging face creased with worry. "You must not fight for us. We will not be the cause of war between your people and the Coalition." "Elder, with respect, that choice isn't yours to make anymore," Sarah replied. "We came here because it was right. We're not leaving because someone threatens us." "Captain," Rodriguez called out urgently, "I'm picking up more ships dropping out of hyperspace. Multiple contacts, unknown configuration." The tactical display updated, showing new vessels appearing throughout the system. But these weren't Coalition ships. Sarah recognized some of the designs: Altarian science vessels, Keltaron diplomatic craft, even some independent trader ships. "This is Captain Zaris of the Altarian vessel Truthseeker," came a new voice over the communications. "Captain Chen, we've been monitoring galactic news feeds. We're here to offer assistance." "Same here," added another voice. "Captain Thorneck, of the independent freighter Wanderer's Dream. The Coalition's been lying to us for 2 centuries. Time to set the record straight." More voices joined in. Scientists, traders, even some minor government officials from Coalition member worlds. Word was spreading across the galaxy faster than anyone had anticipated, and the response was not what the Coalition had expected. Admiral Webb watched his tactical display with growing alarm. What should have been a simple enforcement action was turning into a political nightmare. Half the ships now in the system belonged to Coalition member species who were supposed to be supporting the quarantine. "Sir," Commander Yilix reported, "we're receiving priority communications from Coalition Central Command, Altarian Science Council, Keltaran Parliament, and 17 other governmental bodies. They're all demanding explanations for the quarantine protocols." Webb closed his eyes. The truth was coming out, and there was no way to stop it now. On the planet's surface, young Nexarans were working alongside human medical teams, demonstrating their abilities to anyone who would watch. The footage was being broadcast live across the galactic communication networks, showing miraculous healing that should have been impossible. "Admiral," came Chancellor Vorthak's voice over a secure channel. "The situation is deteriorating rapidly. We're receiving demands for full disclosure from over 40 member worlds. Chancellor, we could still contain this if we act quickly. One decisive strike. Against ships from our own member species? Admiral, if we fire on Altarian or Keltaran vessels, we'll have a civil war on our hands within days. Webb realized the horrible truth. The Coalition had maintained control for centuries through information management and political maneuvering, but they had never prepared for a situation where the truth came out all at once, supported by irrefutable evidence and backed by species who had been loyal members for generations. New contacts, his tactical officer reported. Human reinforcements. Dropping out of hyperspace, it's a full battle fleet, sir. The Earth Defense Force had arrived with everything they had. Battleships, carriers, support vessels, the entire human military presence in this sector of the galaxy. Admiral Lisa Martinez's image appeared on both Coalition and human screens simultaneously. This is Admiral Martinez of the Earth Defense Force. I'm here to ensure the safe evacuation of the Nexaran people continues without interference. Webb knew he was beaten. Even if he could win a military engagement, the political cost would destroy the Coalition. But surrender meant admitting that everything they had told member species for 2 centuries was a lie. Admiral Webb, came Captain Chen's voice. I'm offering you a choice. Stand down and allow the evacuation to continue, and we can discuss this situation like civilized beings, or continue threatening innocent people and face the consequences. Webb looked at his tactical display one more time. Coalition ships, human ships, and vessels from dozens of member species all sharing the same space. Some supporting the quarantine, others opposing it, many just trying to understand what was really happening. All Coalition vessels, stand down, he ordered finally. Lower shields and power down weapons. Sir? Commander Yilex asked in shock. Commander, we're about to witness the end of the galaxy as we know it. The least we can do is make sure it doesn't end in bloodshed. As Coalition, ships powered down their weapons. Cheers erupted aboard human vessels and their growing number of allies. The evacuation could continue, but everyone involved knew this was just the beginning. The Nexarans were free, but the real battle, the fight for the future of galactic civilization itself, was just getting started. A new dawn among the Stars 5. Years had passed since the standoff at Kepler 438c, and the galaxy bore little resemblance to its former self. Captain Sarah Chen, now Admiral Chen of the Free Worlds Alliance, stood on the observation deck of New Geneva Station, watching ships from dozens of species dock at the massive orbital facility. The station itself was a marvel of cooperative engineering. Human industrial techniques combined with Nexaran biotechnology and innovations from the 17 species that had joined the Free Worlds Alliance after the Coalition's collapse. Living metal grew alongside traditional steel, creating structures that could repair themselves and adapt to new requirements. Admiral, came a familiar voice. Dr. James Park, now Director of Interspecies Medical Development, approached with a datapad in his hands and a smile on his face. I have the latest reports from the healing academies. Sarah took the pad and reviewed the numbers with satisfaction. 12,000 humans had completed basic Nexaran healing training across 47 colonies. Another 8,000 from various species were in advanced programs. What had once been miraculous was becoming commonplace. Any problems with the integration programs? Sarah asked. Minor ones. The Keltaran students still struggle with the empathic requirements, and the Altarians keep trying to create technological shortcuts. But overall, success rates are exceeding all projections. Through the observation window, Sarah could see one of the most remarkable sights in the new galaxy. The world of New Nexara hung in space like a blue-green jewel, its surface covered in the crystalline cities that the refugees had built with human help. But this wasn't just another colony world. New Nexara was alive in ways that challenged conventional understanding. The Nexarans had used their healing abilities not just on people, but on the planet itself. They had taken a dead rock and transformed it into a living ecosystem where every element worked in perfect harmony. The terraforming projects are ahead of schedule, Dr. Park continued. The Nexarans have mastered the technique of healing entire worlds. We've received requests from 37 systems to help restore damaged planets. Sarah nodded, remembering the early days when they had been desperately trying to evacuate 3,000 refugees. Now the Nexaran population was approaching 500,000, spread across dozens of worlds in the Free Worlds Alliance territory. Admiral Chen, came another voice. Elder Kenth, now bearing the title of first speaker for the Nexaran people, approached with his characteristic graceful movements. Despite his age, the years of freedom had restored much of his vitality. First speaker, Sarah replied with genuine warmth. How are the cultural exchange programs proceeding? Kenth's expression brightened. Better than we ever dreamed. Human. Children are learning our healing arts alongside our own young ones, and we are learning from human determination and ingenuity every day. The cultural integration had been one of the most remarkable aspects of the Alliance. Human families had opened their homes to Nexaran refugees, while Nexaran healers had become integral parts of human medical teams. Intermarriage was still rare due to biological differences, but adoption across species lines had become common. There is something else, Kenth continued, his tone becoming more serious. We've received a communication from Coalition Space from Admiral Webb. Sarah's expression hardened. The former Coalition Admiral had disappeared after the political collapse that followed the Nexaran revelations. Multiple governments had fallen when the truth came out about the medical monopolies and the centuries of lies that supported them. What does he want? To defect, Admiral. He claims to have information about other species the Coalition has suppressed or eliminated over the centuries. The implications were staggering. If the Coalition had been covering up the Nexaran situation for 2 centuries, what other atrocities might they have committed? How many other species had been destroyed or hidden to protect the interests of the powerful? Where is he now? In a small ship at the edge of the Tau Ceti system. He's requesting safe passage to Alliance space. Sarah considered the options. Webb had been their enemy, but he had also shown remarkable restraint during the standoff. Siu could have ordered the destruction of human ships and chosen not to. Maybe he deserved a chance at redemption. Grant him safe passage, but I want him escorted by a full security detail. If this is some kind of trap? Understood, Admiral. Later that day, Sarah found herself in the station's main conference room, facing a man she had never expected to see again. Admiral Webb looked older, worn down by years of exile and the weight of what he had learned about his former organization. Admiral Chen, he said quietly. Thank you for agreeing to see me. Admiral Webb, you have information for us? Webb activated a holographic display that showed star charts covering vast sections of the galaxy. Red markers indicated dozens of systems, many in regions Sarah had never heard of. These are worlds where the Coalition has hidden or eliminated entire species over the past 5 centuries, Webb said. The Nexarans weren't the first and they weren't the worst case. The room fell silent. Even the worst estimates had suggested maybe a handful of similar cover-ups. This data showed a pattern of systematic oppression spanning centuries. The Vorthon system, Webb continued, highlighting one red marker. Home to a species that could communicate with artificial intelligences directly. They were eliminated because they threatened cybernetic industry profits. Another marker. The Zilani people. They could process and neutralize toxins in their environment. Chemical cleanup corporations had them relocated to a world with no resources and left them to die slowly. Sarah felt sick. How many people knew about this? The inner circle was small. Maybe 50 individuals across all Coalition leadership. But the middle management who carried out the policies, thousands of people knew pieces of the truth. Dr. Park leaned forward. Are any of these species still alive? Some of them. Hidden on reservation worlds, reduced populations, forbidden from leaving their assigned systems. Webb met Sarah's eyes. Admiral, the Coalition's crimes make what they did to the Nexarans look merciful by comparison. The next several hours were spent reviewing Webb's data, cross-referencing it with Alliance intelligence and planning rescue missions that would dwarf the Nexaran evacuation. They were talking about potentially millions of survivors across dozens of worlds. We'll need a bigger fleet, Sarah said finally, and we'll need allies. This is beyond what the Free Worlds Alliance can handle alone. Admiral, came Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice over the comm system. Priority message from the Altarian Science Council. The holographic image of Council Speaker Zelnith appeared in the conference room. The elderly Altarian's scaled features showed unusual excitement. "Admiral Chen, we've been analyzing the data streams from your recent broadcasts. Is it true that there are dozens of suppressed species in Coalition space?" "It appears that way, Speaker. We're still verifying the information." "Admiral, the Altarian Republic is prepared to commit our entire exploration fleet to rescue operations. This information, it changes everything we thought we knew about galactic history." Similar messages began arriving from across Alliance space and beyond. The Keltaran Parliament voted unanimously to support rescue operations. Independent trader guilds pledged their ships. Even some remaining Coalition member worlds began secretly offering assistance. Over the following months, the galaxy witnessed something unprecedented in recorded history. A massive coordinated effort involving hundreds of species, thousands of ships, and millions of volunteers working together to right centuries of wrongs. The first successful rescue was the Vorthon survivors. Only 1,200 remained of what had once been a population in the millions, but their ability to interface with technology revolutionized Alliance computer systems overnight. The Zelani proved to be environmental miracle workers, able to restore poisoned worlds that had been written off as uninhabitable. Their integration into Alliance terraforming projects accelerated planetary restoration by decades. Each rescued species brought unique gifts, abilities that had been suppressed because they threatened established interests. But more importantly, they brought perspectives and knowledge that enriched the growing Alliance in ways no one had anticipated. "Admiral," Elder Kent said during one of their regular meetings, "I wanted to thank you again for what your species has done for us all." Sarah shook her head. "First Speaker, we didn't do this alone. Every species in the Alliance contributed." "Yes, but humans were the first to stand up. The first to say that profit was less important than lives. That took courage we had forgotten was possible." 5 years after the rescue began, Admiral Sarah Chen stood once again on the observation deck of New Geneva Station, but now she was looking at a galaxy transformed. The Free Worlds Alliance included over 100 species, many of them rescued from Coalition oppression. Trade flowed freely between worlds that had never been allowed to contact each other. Scientific advances happened daily as species shared knowledge that had been hoarded for centuries. Art and culture flourished in ways that made the old Coalition look colorless by comparison. "Admiral," Dr. Park joined her at the observation window, "the latest medical reports are in. Average lifespan across Alliance space has increased by 40% in just 5 years. Sarah smiled. "The Nexaround's healing techniques?" "That, plus environmental restoration from the Zelani, plus technological advances from the Vorthon. When species work together instead of competing, everyone benefits." Outside the window, ships from dozens of worlds continued their eternal dance of commerce and cooperation. Children who had been born on refugee ships were now graduating from integrated schools where human, Nexaran, Altarian, and dozens of other young people learned together. "Dr. Park, do you ever regret the choice we made? Fighting the Coalition? Changing everything?" Park was quiet for a moment, considering. "Admiral, 5 years ago we were newcomers begging for acceptance in a galaxy run by people who were willing to commit genocide for profit. Now we're part of something better, something that's growing every day." He gestured to the bustling station around them. "Look at this. Species that the Coalition said could never coexist are working together, learning from each other, building something greater than any of us could achieve alone." Sarah nodded. "The galaxy cast them out, but humanity took them in. And now we're all building something better together." As the twin suns of the Tau Ceti system set behind New Nexara, casting rainbow patterns across the living crystal cities on its surface, Sarah felt a deep satisfaction. They had chosen to stand up for what was right, and that choice had changed the galaxy forever. Somewhere in the distance, more rescue ships were departing for Coalition space, carrying the message that no species would be abandoned, no people would be forgotten. The Free Worlds Alliance was proof that cooperation was stronger than oppression, that the courage to do what's right could overcome even the greatest odds. The galaxy had tried to cast out the innocent and protect the guilty, but humanity had taken them in, and together they had built something better than either could have imagined. The stars shone brightly on a galaxy where freedom was no longer a privilege to be granted by the powerful, but a right defended by all who believed in justice. And at the heart of it all was a simple truth that humans had always known. Sometimes the greatest strength is knowing when to stand up for others. The end of one galaxy had become the beginning of another, and the future burned bright with infinite possibility.